I can't call it that.
I feel like I prepare snacks like a serial killer, like just 3 strings of smoked string cheese and a little.
Kind of you did, but that's okay. We know you're not a
bowl
serial
of
killer.
Dates.
Beaver Dam, Wisconsin's got peppers and a stage. Beaver Dam, Kentucky's where Bill Monroe first played. Beaver Dam, anywhere the people all say, have a gosh dang beaver darn great damn day. Beaverton, Oregon's got the Jenkins Estate.
Nearby.
Beaver Falls, PA is where Joe Namath first played. Beaver Dam, Wisconsin's where the people all say, have a doggone beaver darn great damn day.
Thank you. I appreciate the effort.
Do you like the linearity of my snacks? Do you like how they're vertically just presented for you?
Oh man, we can't even check your cupboards.
It's like cheese fingers.
Because they say that serial killers tend to leave their kitchen cupboards open, but you...
Ha-ha! They're already exposed.
Right?
Came to the world as a serial killer.
Really? Serial killers leave their kitchen cupboards wide open?
So I've heard.
From
I don't know
who?
from firsthand experience.
I mean, that suggests
my
that
cupboards are closed.
serial killers don't have the automatic closing cabinets, which I would think the odds are that over the course of the years, some serial killers would have self-closing cabinets.
I would think it's because serial killers are kind of narcissists, right? And maybe they really think highly of the groceries they have in their cupboards.
I think they're just in a hurry to get down to the basement and they don't close them.
Yeah, I could see that.
You would think that they're perfectionists and would want them closed,
But you have to be efficient. And you have to make sure that you have enough time. And it takes a lot of time to do a crime efficiently.
My ex-husband would always leave them open.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You mentioned you didn't have first-hand experience.
Well, I mean, I got rid of him before.
A good reason, too, if you ask
He's still
me.
alive, but, I always close the cupboards.
So you're not a serial killer.
I am
is
not.
What you're saying.
I put a dent in a bowl of cereal, though, but...
Ha, ha, ha. Wow. Ooh. What great humor. Wow. Hey, I just want to warn you guys.
Like, even me thought that might have been a little too much.
It was. I'm cooking some rice behind you in a rice cooker that may go off here eventually.
Oh, what language does it speak?
Yeah, it kind of varies on the dialect.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have one that speaks
It's a form
Korean.
of binary. So, oh, really?
Yeah.
Mine doesn't talk. Mine just beeps.
Oh, ours talks.
What does it say to you?
I don't know because
your
I
rice
don't
is done. Rice is done.
Pretty much, yeah. Rice is nice.
That looks like that could disrupt a major event just by sitting on a curb.
A major event?
What?
Well, I mean, if you were to go to a major event and then set that on the curb, just not do anything, just set it on the curb and then walk away. I feel like all sorts of craziness would ensue.
The police would be called. Yeah. And then I also have some beans that are currently trying to boil.
Beans and rice.
Yeah. Wow. And some chicken. I left my beans overnight just soaking in the water.
Have any tortellini?
No, I'm not having any tortellini or pasta this week.
Oh, shoot.
But you've got these dates that look like kind of like pickled peppers. But I guess I don't eat a lot of dates. I don't often see dates in their natural habitat.
Have a date.
On the last episode, we talked about how I haven't
one.
dated since the 90s. On this episode, you like where I'm going with this?
I do.
This
serial
episode,
eater, you.
I'm not going to eat a date. I'm just going to look at them and describe them.
They kind of look like shrunken big toes. Stretch LA.
Yeah, they're like greasy.
Yuck.
It's sticky,
it's sugar.
You know how honey kind of crystallizes? If it's like raw, unfiltered honey, it'll crystallize. That is the same thing that'll happen with dates.
Okay.
It's the best part of dates.
They're good.
They look like Chinese food.
Mm.
Oh, it kind of looks like a sweet and sour chicken.
Yeah.
I could see that.
They're delicious. Thank you.
Craig, have a date. Have some smoked string cheese.
I did not come with my appetite. I had eaten before I had come. Had I known there would be dates and smoked string cheese along with beans and rice, I might have saved some room.
Did you offer him some coffee?
Craig doesn't like coffee.
I think we've known each other long enough.
If I had a Pepsi, I would offer him one. Mm-hmm. Or an RC Cola, one of your favorites.
Oh, yes.
You want to smell it to make sure?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I will be up until Thursday if I were to take a sip of that. I don't know
Yay.
how you people do this.
So we should probably regain a little bit of structure here. Guys, we are back with the Great Beaver Fiasco Season 2. We dropped, I haven't even checked comments. I don't know if there was any from Season 1. We should have been more proactive with that. Maybe
In all
that
the
would have
major
been a good
markets.
idea. That's right. and this is now episode 2.
Are you okay? Have you got a problem?
I just don't want to chew into the microphone.
I think people are probably used to it by now.
That's a different show.
Craig chewed into the microphone all last week.
Did I chew into them?
I don't know what it is. So LA is always really soft, and then you're just explosive. It's like raw magma all over.
You can't hold this back. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
You can't grease it. You can't smother the flame. The warm, bold flame.
We could try to fight fire with fire, but yeah, I guess I'm naturally quiet. You gotta be kidding me. No,
not a chance.
Never.
So
well, here we are.
We're so bad at this, and I think we're going to actually have some planning going on in some of the later episodes as we try to find a little structure, because beavers have structure, Craig.
Oh, yeah.
Beavers are engineers. Yeah. They're naturally tuned to finding remnants, detritus, sticks, and they create something beautiful out of it.
Yeah.
And that's what we hope to do. The dirt of humanity, we hope to create something beautiful out of it.
Yeah.
It's just that beavers don't look like cats.
I don't know.
We can't do anything about that.
It's going to stick, but
we could offer some cosmetic surgery to a beaver. But
have you ever cuddled with a beaver?
I haven't. No, I haven't done that. No, the last time I've seen a beaver, LA, was actually in the Boundary Waters. It was swimming.
The Boundary Waters.
It was,
really?
yeah.
Of Minnesota.
Correct. Yes. And Canada.
I saw 3 beavers alongside the road.
Were they alive?
Yes, they were scurrying. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and that was in Beaver Dam, too.
It was just right outside of Beaver Dam, yes.
You've seen beavers in the Beaver Dam area?
I have. It was a big surprise. I actually had to, we were driving past, and then we saw what we thought were beavers, but they were small, and their tails were small. They weren't huge, right? And so we turned around, went back, and it turns out they were kid beavers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kid beaver.
Kid beavers.
Kid Beaver sounds like an early 2000s, it's in St. Patrick playing Kid Beaver.
It's the truth. I mean, I was totally just surprised because I didn't realize how their tails looked when they aren't fully grown.
Well, if it didn't look like a beaver tail, maybe it wasn't a beaver.
No, it was a beaver because I don't know what else it could have been. There's no platypuses.
Only there was other animals in the world that could. I've heard often that there are no beavers in the Beaver Dam area. That they might. I'm drawing a blank on what they're often.
This is not the setup for a joke, but
no, it's not the setup for a joke. But not river rats, but they're there's possum around here.
Yeah, it wasn't.
There's other rodents and critters.
They don't like being in possum territory. Well, I don't know how many streams are actually coming into Beaver Dam Lake. That's what they're looking for.
Well, you live in the wilderness. I mean, have you ever seen a beaver?
Well, I was at the Boundary Waters, and I guess I was temporarily living.
Not around here.
But I've seen beaver dams on water, right before
Where
Columbus.
Do you think I live?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not living on a raft in the middle of the Crawfish River.
Where you used to live, it's a very country setting. If there's going to be beavers anywhere, it would be down by your creek or something.
Yeah, no, it would be. But there's
you had a creek. Look, I just took a shot in the dark.
I said the Crawfish River. I'm setting you up here.
Okay.
And then you act like, look how smart I am. I just gave you the answer.
And truth be told, I kind of know my rodents pretty well. So I know it was not a woodchuck. It was not a gopher. It was not nutria.
Oh my gosh, my beans!
Oh, are they going to explode?
Beans are boiling over.
Beans don't burn.
That looks a little dangerous.
Maybe would have taken that into consideration.
Wow, you're actually boiling beans.
Wouldn't be so hard to get up that hill.
Oh, yes.
Huh.
How does that go? Beans don't burn on the... Beans don't burn on... What's the part before beans don't burn on the grill? Fish don't cook in the mountains?
I have no idea. Was this from your concert that you went to last? Oh. Moving on up.
To the east side. To a deluxe apartment high in the sky. High. We're moving on
up. This coffee's delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
You're welcome.
Has it been sitting all day?
I've never
in
had
that pot. It's been sitting back there.
It's in the bean pot. She's drinking bean coffee.
No, it's
well,
not.
You do make coffee from coffee bean.
It's not the black bean water.
It's the rice water.
So this morning I actually did something I haven't done in a long time. I parked my car, and I got out on the passenger side of the vehicle.
Oh,
why?
I don't remember the last time, but well, there was a lot of traffic coming around on the driver's side. I just got crossed over.
That was I called that the 90s.
That was Your entire decade?
That was pretty much from the time I got my first car in 1993 to maybe that was 94, up until about 1998, I was driving around in a 1983 two-door Chevy Cavalier. I say two-door generously because only one door opened, and that would be the passenger side. The driver's side window also did not open. I've told this story many times. This was in the era when if you were to drive through the city of Chicago, you would have to wait in traffic for an hour to pay 40 cents at a toll booth. Now it's like $2, and because of iPass, there's probably not as long of lines during rush hour. But back then, we used to, so the wife would have to get out, run around to the front of the car, pay the guy at the toll booth or the individual at the toll booth, and then run back. Many a time, we generously, as poor college students, we generously paid for the car behind us.
Well, after all that effort, I would imagine. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would probably do that too.
So that was me in the 90s.
Really?
Every day. So now it's never even crossed my mind to voluntarily exit through the passenger door.
No, not mine either, I don't think. I mean, unless there's a lot of traffic coming, like you're saying. But did your Cavalier, were the seats also kind of like you were like scooting downhill for the entire ride?
What do you mean by that? Like the
you had a
brakes weren't-
Cavalier?
No, my mom
Working?
had a Cavalier, and we called it the Grundy Maker.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Wow, the Grundy.
Because the front seat seriously was at a bit of would that be a decline? Incline?
Well, it depends on if you're going up or
well,
down.
it was going downhill towards like your feet. Yeah. Just
Oh, so
very slight.
So you had 15 degrees of wedgie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, very uncomfortable.
Wow, I'd never heard of that. I don't know if that's specific to the Cavalier. Did the
That's
doors
why I was
open
asking you.
on your
The
Cavalier?
doors opened, the
Well,
windows opened, thank goodness.
You should count your blessings then.
You
If
can
you were merely scooting down into the wheel
Exactly,
well.
yeah.
you could adjust your seats now. I think in the most
Yeah, well, back
most cars.
I mean, those cars too. I think they still had like the middle seat in the front. Remember that?
Oh,
Yeah.
that type of Cavalier. I didn't even know
Yes.
the Cavalier came like that, where it was like one row of seat in the
Yes,
front.
yes.
My grandparents had that car. That was like the last time. The 80s, early 80s would have been the last time I ever drove in a car like that. Such a weird concept. No
I know.
seat belts. You're
Right?
just launching right out the window.
Yeah.
Really, it sounds like you had like a James Bond car. Because if you think about it, like when James Bond would ricochet somebody out of the passenger seat through the sunroof.
Ricochet, it's eject.
Eject, right. It would eject the seat. It would never go back down into the full position. It would kind of be like boing, boing, and it you know.
Yeah, but we were so distracted by the time we got out of that seat, with the Grundys and all that.
Did your father eject anybody out of the vehicle? Or do you suspect there may have been espionage or any type of top secret work on his part?
My dad actually was ahead of his time with fixing cars. I mean, I think the fact
You mean like in the 50s he was working on like 68?
No.
Mustangs or-
He
What's
he
that?
fixed
It's a
car.
Tesla.
He fixed a car. I'm not kidding. In like the late 80s, he fixed a car, and the way that he got the car to start was pressing a button. I have no idea, but he just said over and over again because, I mean, he did repeat himself. I think, a lot of times it was because he didn't really drink coffee. He drank other things. But yeah, I remember to this day, like him I know I get all in a tizzy. He actually said, turn the key, press the button, start the car. Turn the key, press the button, start the car.
And so this was L.A. Bass's car when you were growing up? This was like
no,
your
this was
first
one of my
car?
sister's cars. So I was just witnessing the whole thing like a tennis match. Him telling her how to start the car.
And
He must have been really proud of that repair that
He was.
I mean, like made a song up.
Well,
Turn
he
the
did
key,
love
press the button, start
He
the
did
car.
love to sing. Yes, exactly. That's kind of what it was like. No joke. But yeah, he was an unusual man. My dad.
I feel like if there was a secret agent in our families and we didn't know about it, I feel like a very effective a tactic to prevent that from being found out would be to sing. You wouldn't expect a secret agent to be like, "Oh, you turn the key, push the button, start the car." Mother Russia, next transmission in 40 minutes.
True. You would not expect that. That would be highly unusual.
The singing secret agent. Maybe that's the next James Bond movie. They're still looking for a new Bond. They haven't really announced
they?
who's going to replace Daniel Craig.
Oh, well, my dad's no longer alive, so It's not going to happen.
I thought it was going to be Idris Elba.
Oh, he would be perfect.
Yeah, I think that would be a interesting choice.
What about Ed Sheeran?
Is the villain?
No. Ed Sheeran is James Bond because he comes in like, oh, who's this guy? Oh, it's Ed Sheeran. He's playing the country. No, Ed Sheeran lookalike. He's actually James Bond. You would never expect it. You would never expect him to be James Bond.
Like a doughy, frumpy ginger who plays acoustic guitar. That's your idea of James Bond.
Exactly.
I don't feel like it fits the
You can be
stereotype.
doughy and dangerous. All right.
Doughy and dangerous.
You can be a little yeasty, but then people are going to underestimate you, and that's when you strike.
Yeah, I don't.
He's always got the advantage on his foes.
Doughy, puffy, ginger, Bond.
Maybe that's the new album for Ed Sheeran, Doughy but Dangerous.
Ooh.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, I like that too. How was the concert, by the way, this weekend?
It was just so. It was an excellent concert, and it was so weird being able to see this kid that that grew up in our house. Was as I said last week. If you didn't listen to that episode, my oldest daughter's first best friend. Somebody we've known since he was born, and his parents before they were born. Successfully signed to Atlantic Records, huge label. Led Zeppelin was on Atlantic Records. He's on his first major U.S. tour with a well-established punk band named Fiddlar. The name of Kian's band is Sugar Pit. And he put on his second show of a national tour in his hometown or his home state of Illinois, and there was a lot of friends and family that were there cheering him on. He played a great set, high energy, so in his element, somebody that just seems so naturally acclimated to what they're doing, comfortable on stage. The Vic is a smaller venue compared to some of the bigger venues in Chicago, but I think it's at 1,400, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen nothing but good bands over the years at the Vic, high-level, big-name bands, and this kid is going places. He's I couldn't be more proud. I really had absolutely nothing to do with his upbringing.
Well, still though, I mean,
maybe
you were there when
I was there when. Mm-hmm. So now my daughter's. I'm going to be seeing him here any day now when Fiddlar and Sugar Pit pull into Austin, Texas, and put on what is sure to be another high-energy, great performance. Definitely a younger demographic. There was no lines at the bar, so we were just, if we wanted a beverage, we would just be able to walk up past all the 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, and now they were. It's definitely he's found a very comfortable demographic with that kind of like 16 to 24 age group.
Yeah.
And his big song "I'm Working" is like all over TikTok, and I forget the term when everybody like jumps on it and
goes
like, adds
viral.
their own story.
No.
Patches it together, their version to his music, that whole type
I
of
don't
thing.
remember.
So his video was like
lip syncing?
No, he like crashed a Walmart, and his song is "I'm Working," and he crashed a Walmart and like shot the video until he was kicked out of there. And then so everybody else started using his song and made their own videos at their work of them like, I'm working, and it just it picked up a lot of steam and went viral.
Mm-hmm. Is it too late, you think, for me to jump on the bandwagon and do that at my job?
No,
you can.
It's never too late.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're very, very, very proud of Kian and Sugar Pit. Check them out. They're available everywhere. There's new LPs dropping in November, I want to say, on Atlantic Records.
You know what? And as time goes on here, he becomes more successful. You're going to suddenly get closer and closer in 10 years. Like, oh, he was coming over all the time, and I made a mac and cheese. And,
right.
He was such a great kid.
It's my idea to name him Kian.
I said, Fiddlar. Wouldn't that be a great name someday? Yeah, I really inspired him.
And I found out what Fiddlar stands for.
Yeah, what does it mean?
What is that?
Well, the band was forged by two brothers who are the descendants of a big San Francisco Bay Area surf punk band. I can't think of the name right now, but Fiddlar stands for F it, dog, FIDLAR, life's a risk. F it, dog, life's a risk. That's how they got their name.
Okay.
That's kind of like YOLO.
Yeah, right.
You
Yeah.
only live once.
Came up with their own acronym. And
Nice. I like
and
that.
For some reason, the radio stations won't say the full name of their band.
Wait, they won't say fiddler?
No, they won't say F it, dog. Life's a risk. I don't know how much radio play there. They're not like,
Yeah.
they're not coming up in the
Well, I can imagine
radio
like
era.
some NPR alternative stations would, but
Sure.
Well,
I
not
mean,
too many people listen to the radio anymore.
Yeah, right. Fiddler. This younger generation
yeah.
knows radio's dead. So I mean, they're embracing social media in ways that, and reaching out to their fans in ways that no generation ever has before.
That's actually a really good segue into kind of a larger thing I've noticed, and maybe you guys have noticed it too. But everyone, like everything is super saturated with TikTok. Like everyone's trying to get their little bit of fame in their videos. Is it too much at this point, or is it not enough? Have we not reached that point of like critical maximum peak of everyone trying to get their 15 minutes at the same time?
In my opinion, it's never going to be too much. We have democratized content. We have democratized the voice of people. You do not have to. There is no such thing as spectrum scarcity anymore, which was a big word when I was going through communication school.
Ooh.
Spectrum
Scarcity?
Well,
What
it
does
means
that
that the
mean?
dial only goes from like 87 to 107, and you
Okay.
can't do anything more than comes between those numbers, or in the case of television, eventually cable came in and kind of destroyed that concept, but you still had to start a television station. You had to be Wayne and Garth, and maybe do community television. However you were going to get there, it was a very complicated process. We are sitting in Thomas's living room right now, doing this
Kitchen
slash kitchen on unnecessarily complicated
and
equipment.
office, yeah.
But we could have done this on much easier equipment than we're even doing it on.
Yeah, and you also point out, Craig, how I think most media classes now in communications, if you're going to an associate's degree or a bachelor's, it's pretty much like philosophy, or like when someone says, like, "Yeah, I studied like art history." No offense, LA.
None
It's like the
taken.
same thing. Like you do a media class like 10 years ago, like everything you learned is pretty much extinct. Like none of it really applies anymore.
I remember
I
not.
really would have liked to know that like a dozen years ago.
I remember not wanting to get into radio and television and communications, and I thought about it for a while because I had heard that to be able to pass the class, you have to be able to know how to edit tape. And when I say edit tape, I'm not talking about like a tape deck and hitting record. I'm talking about X-Acto knife and
my
taping
gosh.
actual tape together, which just seems nightmare inducing to me.
Yeah.
Yet every radio station I had worked at throughout my career, there was always some person that worked there that was, well versed in being able to do that, and still talking
comes
about
back,
the
I'm
days
ready
of
for it.
right. If this comes back, I'll know how
My
to do
X-Acto
it.
Wow.
knives are sharp and ready.
Good. I'm not ready for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. I mean, if it's not a forward-thinking class about media, and one that completely incorporates the fact that there's no need to train for media. I went to train to learn how to use this equipment that only a select few people knew how to use. Like what? Now the students.
What a waste! What a waste of a degree.
Students are going to show up and teach the teacher how to use TikTok and everything that's going on. Obviously, unless you have a teacher that is very plugged into it. If you have some professor that's just there on tenure, still talking about, alternative
that was my
presses of the
professor.
60s.
Yeah.
Well, I do have to say, though, Instagram, though, if either one of you are on Instagram, has gotten more stringent with its policy as far as people who aren't super popular not being seen as much. Like if you search for a certain subject, if you don't have a certain number of followers, you really won't be seen.
So it is a social caste system then.
Yes, it is. Because
high
too many
school
people
all
were
over
also
again.
getting popular on Instagram. And so now it just seems like it's harder to do those things. So as easy as it was, I think there is kind of getting to be some sort of a cap on people being able to become social media superstars.
Well, that equates putting out a message with being popular, which, these are two mutually exclusive ideas. You don't need to be popular to put out a message. I mean, sure, nobody listens to it if a bear goes in the woods. There's that whole concept, but we still have the ability to be able to do that as a human race for the first time, as far as we know, in the history of this planet.
Definitely. And it's so funny because I was listening to, I don't know what genre you would put him in, Neville Goddard. Are you familiar with him? He's from, I think, the 1920s, 1930s. And they have updated his recordings on YouTube to include examples saying, like, people are so distracted by social media, and there was no social media, and they have in their likes and dislikes. There were no likes and dislikes when he was making his recordings because he made recordings.
As a young adult, he taught various self-help methods for testing his own claim that the human imagination is omnipotent. Therefore, God. Ooh, the imagination is God. He achieved popularity by interpreting the Bible and the poetry of William Blake.
From his book, Your Faith is Your Future, quote, change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. Do not try to change people. They are only messengers telling you who you are. Revalue yourself and they will confirm the change.
And so this guy, Neville, had to, you said this was the 20s?
I'm not exactly sure when he was out because
He was born in 1905,
okay.
So I mean, one would think that might be the peak era of his career and what he was doing. Think about how complicated that was to be able to try to get a message out. Where you would go to look for that, you would have to go to school to understand the technology of how to use that, of how to present yourself. That's why everybody talked like this back then, because one guy said to do it, so everybody else had to do it.
Well, I mean, you'd also have to probably be an author. I mean, because that was kind of the first source, was getting your books, getting your message in books, people to read the books.
Yes.
That didn't hurt. You didn't have to be an author, but you could be, and that would definitely play into it.
There was something in there that made sense, but...
Thank you. Every once in a while.
But people actually wanted to read his books, and I think, 100 years ago, obviously there was less people, so there was less noise. Now the population's over 7 billion, if not more, at this point. Back then it might have been like 3 or something like that, but there's so many more people trying to seek attention. And I don't know, it kind of going back, if Instagram is throttling people's videos, how do you know a video is popular unless it has accessibility? It's like, how do you know something is valuable unless a lot of people tell you, I really want that thing. Oh, whoa, my value's just gone up to 20 million.
And I feel the ability to popularize yourself is also available. It's not necessarily behind a paywall. You can gain traction for free with quality content. I mean,
this is not an example of quality content.
This would not
this
be.
This is not meeting the bar.
And plus, we don't run everything through the ringer the way that somebody would, chopping everything up for social media in shorts and reels and getting that out there and collecting. I mean, it's something we're passively doing, but not actively doing. The more you try to do it, probably, the harder it might be. But the outlets are still there. They're still, for the most part, free. They're very low cost. So in theory, at the end of the day, the better message or the better content or the better whatever, in theory, has a better chance of rising to the top than when you had these gatekeepers controlling 3 television stations and, print and whatever it may be. That was a very limited thing. And breaking into that was difficult, to say the least.
Much more.
Unless
if your name wasn't Neville.
Knew someone.
Unless you knew someone, or you had a talent, and listen to the radio announcers from the 40s and 50s. The guy who narrated A Christmas Story, whose name escapes me right now. He had everything going for him. He was an excellent writer. He was an excellent orator. He was an excellent storyteller, which is so important. Nowadays, they only hire people for one thing. Oh, they've got a pretty face and they could read. Or, they know a lot about this subject and they can communicate that.
Yeah. So I have kind of another point that's going to morph into something connecting with you, Craig. So I'm part of the I'm part of the 4th of July committee.
I will not. I do not have time to be on the 4th of July committee in Columbus.
I'm not.
I will not be the president of the committee if that's what you're
I
asking.
know, Tori Weidman.
No matter how much they beg, right?
Tori would love for you to be the president. But I'm in charge of the website, and I was really honest about it yesterday. Like, I find it really overwhelming, and it's not that difficult. All I'm doing is standing in a corner, and I'm just editing a website, but I find that immensely more stressful than actually being out interacting with people and talking with people, like, head on. It's something about, like, it never ends. There's no way to end, and that's how I feel about Instagram. Like, back in the day, you had to be really good at writing script copy and being an orator and projecting your voice. Now you can vaguely look like Keanu Reeves, apply an AI filter, and then every day you just have a different, Keanu Reeves, like what he does in the bathroom, what he does in the kitchen. And that's your whole shtick, and you get 2-3 million people following you on Instagram.
True.
If you can develop the shtick. I mean, even though that's what we were doing back in the day when just because everybody had to have all those qualities, at the end of the day, they still had to be able to share a message in a way that's appropriate for the medium. So what these Instagrammers are doing now is really no different than what, the golden age of broadcasting brought us, with these particular skills highlighted to be able to convey that message. These kids right now, if you're able to attract 2 million followers, who cares what you're talking about? You have succeeded in communication and sharing a message and reaching out to people. That's an accomplishment every bit as amazing as the first radio broadcaster or Neville, whatever his name was.
Goddard, I think, yeah.
That's really something that shouldn't be discounted.
That's true. Not to disagree, though, but the one thing that I do have to say about nowadays with filters and edits, though, it can be very dishonest, and you can get a lot of followers not really being who you are or not really portraying the truth, which kind of makes, for women, speaking as a woman, kind of makes the social standards of beauty unattainable.
It's always been that way, though, hasn't it? I mean, there's always been kind of a lie in telling the truth. We've always kind of presented a false front. Dan Rather didn't necessarily wear that, suit and tie back at his house when he would, curl up with a Cavassier or whatever he did at the end of the night. It's a talking head. He's playing the part. And that's the same thing that's the same idea of deception, right?
Well, I was thinking of like the payola scandal.
Right.
Where I think that's a pretty good one, where you had like radio announcers were getting paid by artists to actually like...
Way back in the day, that type of thing doesn't happen anymore.
Not anymore. But they would basically pay for likes, and that's kind of the same thing as today. You pay for a bot or 10,000 bots and get free likes.
True.
Well, not free, but...
So on a similar but different note, did everyone hear that Coldplay played their album for the first time in Moon, Wisconsin at the Moon Saloon?
There's a Moon, Wisconsin?
What album?
I didn't know that. Moon Music.
Like their new album?
Yes, their new album debuted at this little tiny saloon in a little tiny town of Wisconsin.
I've got to pull up my Maps app and figure out where Moon, Wisconsin... Is that where Moon
I think it's near,
Zappa was
if I
conceived?
remember, it's near Stevens Point or Eau Claire, one of those towns up there. But yeah, I thought that was pretty neat.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
And they presumably chose the place because it's got the name Moon
Yeah, exactly.
in the title.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's about 2 hours, 15 minutes away from Beaver Dam.
It doesn't even
that's
come
not
up
very-
on my map app.
Well, that's why I got to use Google. Correct?
I think you have to look for Moon Saloon, maybe. Then it'll come up.
Well, maybe we should take a trip to Moon, Wisconsin.
Maybe
it's
we
just north of
should.
Stevens Point.
Just north of Stevens Point, right?
Look at you kids, though, on your phones. Whoa.
Pull over.
It's how I get admiration. It's how I get likes.
Oh, I see.
That's fascinating. Are you guys fans of Coldplay?
I was back in the day, and they kind of had the vibe of like Nickelback. Where if you said back in like 2005, yeah, I like Nickelback. At that point, like everyone seemed to like Nickelback. And it's like, you like Nickelback? I was honest. I'm like, yeah, I enjoy Coldplay. And I just got nothing but bullying of, you have no taste in music.
Terrible.
Coldplay.
Who are they to say that?
But then Viva La Vida came out, and everyone's like, oh, I love Coldplay. What are you talking about?
That is, and that song, the song Viva La Vida, right? That's the song.
I think it's the album, too.
And the album, too, right? Title track. I think that's the perfect example of one of the songs that I think are one of the greatest songs ever written by one of the most annoying bands ever on the planet.
That's a very honest opinion of Coldplay.
So we know where you stand or sit.
And actually, I don't have a problem with them as musicians. I just think I understand the kind of maybe backlash that Coldplay got. From my perspective, I see that as like, oh, okay. So like rock and roll was like really gritty and kind of like authentic for many years. And now we've just got, this lead singer who's just kind of, he's the opposite of what you would want in a rock band, typifying the 90s. And so really coming out of the 90s into the 2000s. So really it was kind of, I think hatred toward both Coldplay and Nickelback is really more about the direction that music had taken than those individual bands.
You were spoiled, though, because you were coming to age right when music was dirty. It was coming out of bars of Seattle. It smelled like cigarettes and old plaid shirts. Like it did. It had a rawness to it. And Nickelback and especially Coldplay and Chris Martin kind of looked like it just came out of like a Sunday service. And we're like, all right, let's play a little music now.
Well, and you have to ask yourself, why has there not been another Seattle grunge type of renaissance in some different part of the country with some different genre of music? And that's just the consolidation of media that has taken place that took the control of individual programmers at media outlets, took that control away, brought it to some guy in New York. So suddenly one guy was picking the songs for the whole country rather than individual DJs who could recognize something maybe local like a Pearl Jam or a Nirvana coming along and give it play, and then suddenly, oh, Seattle's playing that, so now Chicago is and Davenport. But that ceased to exist because of the Telecommunication Act that was signed in the 90s that allowed for media consolidation and put everything into the hands of one guy who liked Nickelback in New York. So yeah, the natural reaction, I think, by the rock and roll loving public is this choice that they may not even realize was made is impacting them by them having to listen to a million different bands that all sound like Nickelback.
So what I'm hearing is that Bill Clinton ruined 90s rock.
That came up during the Clinton administration, the Telecommunications Act, and yeah, it had ramifications. At the same time, the argument could be made, and was made by these companies, that they couldn't compete as individual stations anymore. So there was a reality to kind of temper that with that, okay, maybe we'll just have nothing then, because it's very difficult to just own one radio station, even in the 80s and 90s, and be able to turn a profit on it and all the requirements that it takes to maintain a transmitter and a tower and have an engineer and do all these things with declining revenue. And it only got worse. Why did it get worse? Well, probably because of media consolidation. So it's a bit of a catch-22.
Okay, LA, I want you to, since you're on the Shays right now, you have the all-important decision of picking apart Craig's argument here. Media consolidation, that's why music is all similar sounding. Homogenous. It's why everyone's eating the same flavor of Jell-O. I'm going to offer a different argument. I'm going to say, counter to what Craig's saying, I think there's renaissances of music all across the country. I think they're all spurting around. You can see them on TikTok. You can see them in all these little niches. But there's so many right now, and they're so fractured, and it's almost impossible to figure out like who's going to be the big star. And so the safer option's going with somebody that's already made it big, or somebody that the consolidation has chosen that we don't realize, like all the different talent, new talent that's right beneath our toes.
So you want me to pick apart his argument with what you said?
I don't even know what I was trying to ask you. I guess what do you think about
I think probably what you just explained is why there are these just like so many different fractions of music that's just kind of like scattered. And I think probably, that makes sense that it's all kind of like predetermined and established, like who are going to be the big guns in the music industry.
In traditional outlet sense. My statement applied to traditional outlets and leaves the role of the internet out of it. The internet, going back to what I originally said, kind of becomes the great equalizer then. You can be a band, you can go in your basement and put together a studio that sounds just as good as the studios back in the 70s that recorded some of the greatest rock albums of all time. from Menards, or in Sweetwater. You could do that for probably $1,000. You could record that album. You could put it out, just like the guy who put out Boston. One musician in his basement, the band Boston, Tom Schultz, got a bunch of hired guns around him, just like Sugar Pit and Kian. He kind of followed the Boston model. You could put that out on one of your many internet channels out there, websites, whatever you want, and boom, now we've got a million different choices. It sucks that you have to wade through a million, terrible things or whatever it is. Nobody seems to be doing it because the Instagrams of the world are elevating certain things for profit, which is totally understandable. They've got to answer to quarterly, Wall Street estimates and whatnot. But that's where we are. So it comes back to the same thing that we were doing, or I was doing as a music lover in the 80s and 90s, going into small, obscure, used record stores and buying tapes for 90 cents of bands I had never heard of and taking a chance and listening to somebody that isn't necessarily pushed by the mainstream media, and then trying to discover that interesting little nugget of culture yourself.
And being the one that found that nugget. So when your friends are asking you, Craig, where did you find this great song? You could feel like a king for a day. I'm like, I found it on some little shop.
Some website.
I just kind of found it. And then you're the guy that has that song. It's like, what is that song? I have to hang out with Craig because he's the only one that has that song.
He unearthed it, right?
Yeah.
This Craig guy you're talking about sounds awesome. But right. He unearthed it and brought that to we're not seeing that as much, but there's so much to mine. I mean, there is so much and one thing about the 70s and the 80s, it was still a seemingly finite pool to choose from, no matter where you went. I mean, obviously there were billions of hours of stuff to listen to even then. But now, I mean, where do you even start? I tell you where you start, with the Great Beaver Fiasco.
That way, I don't think we're a music-oriented podcast.
Oh, that's right.
Really?
Darn it.
Do, re.
We're not.
Have you seen that game though, where you do
Simon Says?
No, not Simon. Never mind. I can't explain it.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one. It's an AI game.
It's terrible. I really bad at it.
Tell me about the AI.
Yeah,
So
you have to do do re mi fa sol la ti de whatever the heck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you added a few of your own syllables in there.
I did.
No, it's an augmented reality game, and it's kind of like hurdles on a track field, Craig. So you have a little ball, right? You're the ball.
Yes.
And you have to aim through these holes in each increasingly sized hurdle, which is a different note in this do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, la, ti, da.
I think it's on TikTok, right? I mean, yeah, it's on TikTok.
Are you on TikTok?
I am.
Yeah, are you kidding me? Of course she is. She's cool.
Are you on TikTok or are you on TikTok?
I'm on TikTok. I have it so that I can watch my daughter's TikToks.
You're a vicarious stalker.
Are you 3 for 3 on daughter TikToks? Like all three of them have one?
No. Nope.
Do all three of them have one, or do
all three of them have one? But obviously, Lily's more active on TikTok than. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
But then the other one should be getting more active on TikTok.
Yes. But since when did children listen to their mother? Since when? Huh?
I listen to my mother all the time. I followed my dreams like she told me to, and I ended up where I am now.
And aren't you lucky?
I'm so pleased.
But yeah, so it's on TikTok, and I do not know how to hold a note, so I did not do well at the game.
Sing it into the microphone.
Yes, you have to hit the note so that it goes through the hole, and then it's a scale, like the vocal scales. You're talking to someone who knows nothing about music.
Did you ever do any vocal training or piano lessons or anything?
Piano lessons.
Oh, you
Even
did do
though
piano lessons.
my mom, the last time I saw my mom, which was last week, she's like, "Did you take piano lessons?" Like she's trying to block it out because I did. I did take piano lessons.
Well, I mean, she had 48 kids. You need to.
She did not. Well,
take
kind
it
of, I
easy
guess,
on her.
with the
It's hard to keep them all
actually,
straight.
probably more than that because she had the daycare center, of course, when I was growing up. So.
Did she ever like, oh yeah, you were one of mine?
Yeah, I kind of felt that way. Thanks, Craig.
Well, there's so many kids running, but you always had kids running around and kids to play with too growing up.
That's right. Yeah.
Because my wife's got 5 sisters, and they were just talking about how all the only child friends they have are always so jealous that they're cheaper by the half dozen or whatever kind of dynamic that they've got going on. But I have an older sister. She's 10 years older, but I was basically an only child.
That's right.
9 years and 3 months. Sorry, whatever, Laura.
Did she age? I have a question about your older sister.
Much older sister, yes.
How much older is she?
She's like 9 years and what's the difference between November and May, whatever that is, 6 months,
5 months?
9.5 years maybe.
She aged out of the Bozo audience, right?
Right. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So I got to go to the Bozo show.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a story that I must have shared with you at one point.
I love that story.
My mom had just told me, because for many years I thought that was maybe just a fever dream. But I went on the Bozo show.
Bozo fever dream.
My parents requested tickets when my sister was like 6 or 7 years old, and by the time they got him, she was 17, and she wasn't going to go to the Bozo show. So I guess they wound up having to take her little brother. And so, I was on the Bozo show. Now, I remember doing the buckets. So I was just like, my gosh, was I like on the Bozo show? Like on the show doing the buckets?
I mean, they didn't give the kids credit. Like they didn't list their names, right, at the end. So there's no way to look that up.
And I also did do a deep dive to see if there's an archive of these shows out there.
Oh.
Yeah.
There are 2 shows that weren't taped over, apparently, in the whole history of the Bozo the Clown.
You were one of them.
No, I was certainly not one of them by no stretch of the imagination. I also don't think I would have been on, because then my mom told me, oh no, all the kids at the end got to do the bucket game.
Oh.
So maybe they had like one kid. I doubt it. I may have been on, who knows? But yeah, all the kids.
Do you know what we're talking about with the Bozo show?
If you don't know who Bozo is?
Confused
Yeah, I can
millennial
see your
face.
confusion, but I wondered if it was because you're worried about the beans over there. But
I've stirred my beans.
Okay.
They're fine. So Bozo, I can't believe I'm hearing this, is a show about clowns that was popular.
no, it was a variety show.
Bozo was the host of a variety show along with his sidekick Cookie, and there was a few other ones that was originated out of WGN Chicago but carried nationwide.
Which is how I saw it in Platteville, Wisconsin.
But you would have gotten WGN anyway, probably in Platteville.
Once we got cable.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
We only got three channels before we got cable.
Okay, that's fine.
And then for 5 years, my dad thought the antenna was just working really well because nobody told him we got cable. And he found out and thought we were wasting our money, apparently. So
watching quality entertainment.
Fight, yeah.
Wow. My parents got cable the second I went to college.
Oh,
I was like, oh, thanks for the 4 channels for 18 years that I got to watch.
Yeah, but that was a thing, though, having clowns on kids' show. I mean, I guess to me, they're scary. And even when I was a child, they were a little scary. But it may be because when we were talking about this, actually, about the Bozo show. And then in Iowa, there was a show that was similar to that where they showed cartoons. And they had 2 hosts. One was Dr. Max and his sidekick clown, Mambo.
Yeah, right. I remember hearing about
And
this.
we Googled Mambo, the stuff of nightmares, Mambo. Let me tell you, look up Mambo from the Dr. Max show and be horrified. It was frightening.
Now, that was one that didn't necessarily get the attention that Bozo got.
It was more local, regional, I think.
It always it surprises me now when I hear people not familiar with what Bozo was. I thought it had such an impact on the culture that it had filtered. I mean, we still use the term. Well, I don't know what came first, Bozo the Clown or the term, hey, Bozo. I have no idea where that came up in the lexicon. But, I mean, we still use the term, and every time I hear the term Bozo not related to the show, I think of the show.
Me too.
So I'm going to blow your minds right now by bringing this podcast full circle. So you guys enjoyed clown entertainment when it was still popular in the U.S. I wonder, going back, do you remember the topic that started off kind of this conversation or this whole podcast? It was about snacks, and it was about how these snacks kind of looked like serial
killers. Yes.
Did John Wayne Gacy and his crimes from 1972 to 78, that was pretty much that was pre-clown entertainment, and then Gacy came on the scene, and then it was post-clown fear. Do you think that was the great shift of clown, how people viewed clowns in America at that time?
Well, when did the movie It come out?
Definitely after the Gacy.
Okay.
Even the book, I would think, may have been inspired by Gacy, who was from my neighborhood, by the way.
Whoa.
Yeah, I've told you guys this story
Yeah, I
before.
thought so.
My
I think I
aunt
blocked
and
it
uncle
out.
moved into his neighborhood, into his exact neighborhood, as everything was going down, and couldn't find their house driving to their new house because the neighbors took all the street signs down to throw off the media so they wouldn't be in constant, a media circus.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and my aunt and uncle lived very close to me. It's all in that neighborhood, Cumberland, Lawrence, all that's where I'm from. So Gacy has always had a special connection to me. That's an interesting question that you ask about the impact that he had on clowns. I would counter by saying maybe, but also clowns are pretty bleeping scary.
Yeah, I
Just
agree.
in general.
I
on their
agree.
own.
I don't think that was always the case. You guys were entertained, and Craig, you're a young boy. You're being on the Bozo the Clown show, maybe, and you weren't terrified, were you? Do you have memories of fear?
I mean, like I said, it was all a fever dream. I don't think I would have been. I was pretty young when that happened, so I don't think that I was afraid of clowns then. Now, it did. Then I remember seeing movies like Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
I
or
was just thinking about
clowns
that. Yeah.
in general.
Or Poltergeist.
That is it. Beep beep. That is it. That is the alarm that says you nailed it right on the head.
That's the movie. Is it 1982?
Poltergeist?
that
I have
did
not
freak me
seen
out.
Poltergeist.
The original Poltergeist.
Didn't see it.
It was,
Even
it was
now
a
to this
popular
day.
movie.
Even now to
with
this
a
day.
terrifying clown scene.
That
Yeah.
clown scene freaked me out and I had seen that movie way earlier than I probably should have, and I was out with the clown scene. I was done at that. It wasn't that scary of a movie before or after that, but even today, that scene in Poltergeist is like, dude, that clown is freaky.
Really? They used real bones.
That's what
Skeletons.
I remember.
Real human
I've heard
skeletons in that movie.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think the thing with clowns, though, is that
We're just gonna leave
Moving
that
on
there.
for real skeletons. Nope.
Totally normal. Why would
Next subject here.
well,
Authentic.
apparently they were cheaper. It was cheaper to use
Yeah,
the real human
I thought it
bones
was
as
like-
opposed to fake.
I thought it was a time thing. They couldn't get enough of the
Maybe it was
fake
a
ones
combo.
made. Whatever. Somebody made a terrible decision, and then there's Mary Beth Adams or whatever her name
Mary
is.
Jo or
Mary Jo. I forget the name of this star.
well, that was
I didn't see it.
Craig
that would have been
Nelson
probably Spielberg's, right? Because he was the producer, but he basically directed that movie.
Yeah, I forget the specifics, but it was one in now as we record this in the month of October. If you like the 80s and you like horror movies, it's
Perfect.
a entertaining movie. It's not scary unless you don't like clowns.
Well, yeah, which would make it scary. But my
one scene.
favorite, scariest Spielberg movie, if I could say that, is Duel.
Oh, that's
Oh,
like
the first film
72
that he
Terrifying,
released,
yes.
or whatever. I've never sat down and watched that.
But I
Though
think
I
it's
feel
because,
like Schindler's List is scarier, but you know.
well, truth is
Sorry, I
stranger
didn't
than
mean to
fiction.
put
But
reality into the equation.
Wow,
Right.
we toned it. You know, Schindler's List. I will cry almost every time just watching that movie.
Oh, gut wrenching.
yeah, me too.
Which it's an incredible movie, but yeah, it's
People used to ask me what I thought the scariest movie was, and it was, The Exorcist until I saw Hotel Rwanda, which is another terrible real life story about genocide in Africa.
yeah.
So this is a real downer way to end a podcast, I've noticed. But I think the point is good and relevant in that things change throughout the course of decades, but there's still a lot of similarity. I'm pulling this out of my
LA,
I don't know what-
there is some stuff on this shelf behind you. Can you reach out for that second DVD? Yes, it's a DVD. It's right underneath the book.
The Raid 2,
No, it's right above the Raid 2.
I can try, but my feet might be asleep.
Death of Stalin.
Yes.
My eye doctor
The-
would be so impressed with me
way to
right
go.
now.
20/30 vision right there. Craig.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's at the Blu-ray.
That's the Raid 2. What's the Raid? I never saw the Raid
Oh,
1.
well, that's a whole different conversation.
Do we really need to have gotten this physical box for this audio-only podcast that we're recording?
Yeah, it's all about the theater.
Oh, a comedy of terrors.
The Death of Stalin. So, I mean, that's, that kind of fits into what we were talking, like movies based on terrible events where how many millions of people were sent into the gulag during that time of the Great Purge and then after World War II by Stalin. And this movie does, just rewatch it over the weekend. It does an incredible job of making a horrifying situation kind of humorous, but also like there's a real terror, and it is such a messed up story of what happened after he passed away.
I'll have to check that out. I mean, that's what humans do, right?
I'd let you borrow it, but I'm probably not going to get it back for another year.
I would not recommend anybody borrow me a DVD. Maybe in the heyday of DVDs, you would have gotten it back the next day, but I mean, you borrowed me a DVD in the day of YouTube.
Borrow. You don't use borrowed like that.
I have a solution. We just need a
ruined that.
watch party.
For Stalin?
Yes.
But I think it's an excellent opportunity at a watch party to embrace this very human quality of finding humor in a tragic situation.
Yeah. Kind of like this podcast.
No one's laughing.
We're trying to find humor in a tragic podcast. We haven't found it yet.
The beaver hasn't made it.
So I think this was another great episode as a reminder. As a reminder that we should really do our diligence and be like beavers and be productive and actually have a little structure in our next episode.
Are we going to try to do this every week now?
Well, this is our goal now.
It is our goal.
We have set an expectation.
It's our map. Our map to the future.
So I think it'd be a good idea and maybe prudent upon us if we brought some topics for conversation.
You know, I did, but I completely forgot them as soon as I got here.
Yeah, we just went with your topic of Nickelback.
We're never going to mention Nickelback in this podcast ever again.
Gene Shepard was the narrator for The Christmas Story.
You didn't even have to use your phone to check that out.
I did check it earlier, and I'm circling back to things that we didn't put a cap on.
Yeah, and there's no way for me to prove this, but I did actually remember his name before you said it.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I just telecommunicate, telepathy.
I would highly recommend the listening public out there. It's great to listen to new cutting edge podcasts. Go listen to Neville Goddard. Go listen to Gene Shepard. His storytelling is amazing. Appreciate the history of human beings being able to communicate beyond the person next to them. It's only been in our recent history, as far as we know, unless you believe in the Stone Temple Pilots and all the crazy things that may have happened thousands of years ago with all the drawings that look like they're in spaceships and whatnot. But we've only really been able to do this for the last 100 or so years. So it's quite an advancement we've made in a short amount of time.
I'm passing along my phone to LA. I want LA.
Sorry.
You want me to avoid the microphone boom? LA, that is a list of 21 quotes from Neville Goddard. And I'm wondering if there's one maybe that's on your screen or if you scroll to one.
Take your time. We'll just have dead air until you get to a good one.
Also, because, I don't have my glasses. So.
All right, so looks like she's saying, Craig gets the right one out now.
Finish off
I appreciate
the episode with Neville Goddard.
While you're looking, I just want to say that the most recent one that I was listening to was just talking about how really when you're at that moment of falling asleep, to really, instead of like recount the everyday maybe mishaps that happened, kind of think about how you want things to be better.
Can you read that? I blew it up a little bit.
Realize you yourself are the power. Are the power.
Okay, so you can't then?
Would you like me to read this? Because of your belief in external things, you think power into them by transferring the power that you are the external thing. Realize you yourself are the power you have mistakenly given to outer conditions. Can kind of read it without my glasses.
Wait a second. So. Remember with Michael Belanger, read it twice. Can you read it again?
Probably better than the first time. Let's see.
Because of your belief in external things, you think power into them by transferring the power that you are to the external thing. Realize you yourself are the power you have mistakenly given it to outer conditions.
Which is very true.
Wow, that's an incredibly deep observation from a time when we were burning vocals into wax cylinders as records.
Mm-hmm.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah, it's very much, I do. I think he has some very insightful words.
The biggest delusion is that there are causes other than your own state of consciousness.
Ooh.
Man's chief delusion is his conviction that there are courses other than his own state of mind.
And with that, when you guys leave, I'm going to cry and eat the string cheese and dates that no one ate because you guys aren't my friends. I will eat my snacks.
I had some dates.
I'll bring some snacks next time if these are the offerings that are going to be available here when we come.
And this was...
The Great Beaver
Fiasco.
Fiasco.
I didn't think we were doing that
Do
again.
we want to? Of
course we're doing
you
it.
pointed at her, though.
Yeah.
What was she going to say when you pointed at her?
You didn't have to follow along. I thought LA would just be the ones that just.
The Great Beaver Fiasco.
Oh, but that's good. But do it one more time.
The Great Beaver Fiasco.
Now with more enthusiasm.
The Great Beaver Fiasco.
Now sad. Do a sad version of it.
The Great Beaver
Ooh, I like this.
Fiasco.
Wow.
Now do it like you're talking to someone really annoying on a train next to you.
The Great Beaver Fiasco.
I think she did it like the annoying person instead of the person who was annoyed. You knocked my boom.
That was excellent.
Thank you.
Wait, you've got military time on your phone.
What time is it?
1952?
Yeah, it's 7:52.
No, it's 1952 military, men. You've never even been in the military. What do you have military time on
Because
here
it's
for?
easier to read, and it's easier for my knowing that my alarm is set for the proper time. Because what if I forgot AM PM? It's happened to me a couple times, so this is better.
Okay. All right. So you're able to do that math? Oh, you do that too?
Yeah, it's called subtraction.
I'm so glad they let you out of the hospital, by the way. I think you're really doing much better. You look great. She's not even talking. Look at. I'm gonna take a picture of this, and this is going on the thumbnail. You too. Look at your microphone. It's pointed up at the ceiling.
Well, because I'm right over it.
You wonder why my voice is always so boomy. It's because you guys aren't even talking into the microphone.
I'm talking like this.
Hey, I think
Beaver Dam,
today-
Wisconsin's got peonies and parades. Beaverton, Oregon's where shoes are made. Beaver Dam, everywhere the people all say, have a gosh dang beaver darn great damn day.